Believe it or not, there are some things that even Tom Cruise can improve upon.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast, where we discuss the world of film from a fresh angle. And now your host, Robert Yaniz Jr.
Welcome to the Crooked Table Podcast. This is Rob. On this episode, we're going to be talking about The Mummy 2017 edition, the ostensible launchpad for Universal's Dark Universe, starring Tom Cruise, and traveling back to the 1999 edition, starring Brendan Fraser. Also, stay tuned for an encore segment. But first, before we get into all things Mummy, a couple other things I wanted to touch base on. First of all, I saw the new film, It Comes at Night. This is what's being marketed as a horror film from A24, the distribution company behind films like Moonlight and Ex Machina and Free Fire, which we did a whole episode on just a couple months ago. And this one stars Joel Edgerton, Carmen Ejogo, Christopher Abbott, and a few others. And it's basically the story of this family living sort of in isolation amid a sort of, a kind of, I guess, a post-apocalyptic world where there's basically this plague out there and people are getting sick and they're not sure why. And they come upon another family. And from there, it really dovetails into a lot of themes of paranoia and grief and just like dealing with the situation that they're sort of trapped in. And this movie's been getting very negative to mixed reviews from moviegoers, but critics are over the moon for it. And I think after seeing it myself, I can sort of see why, because the film, if you look at the trailers, they are really pushing this as a supernatural horror film, whereas the actual film itself doesn't really explicitly, spoilers I guess, a little bit, doesn't really explicitly go into supernatural elements. There's a lot of dream sequences to sort of throw you off. There's a lot of long, lingering tracking shots and very few jump scares, except for when you're coming out of dream sequences, I guess. But the film is much more sort of a thriller / family drama situation, focusing on this family and the situation they're in. It's more about being suspenseful and claustrophobic and that kind of thing. It has a totally different vibe from what they're selling in the poster and in the trailers and things like that. And they're really playing up the mystery of, what is out there that's outside, that's coming at night. I think people going in with that expectation are going to be disappointed. However, if you go in knowing that it's not going to be what you're expecting, I think there's a lot of good things in the film. I think director Trey Shults, who did the movie Krisha last year, that's got a lot of critical acclaim, I think the film shows a real artistry. I mean, Shults is a real master behind the camera at pulling off atmosphere and mood and getting really authentic performances from his actors. I just think that It Comes at Night, it's one of those movies that really frustrates me in a way, despite the artistry and style that obviously was put into the film and the efforts of Edgerton, Ejogo, and some of the other stars. The young man in the film is actually specifically one of the best aspects. He's basically, for all intents and purposes, I guess you could make an argument that he is the main character of the film. And his name is Kelvin Harrison Jr. He plays the character Travis, who's the son in the family, and the original family. And I think that there's a lot of interesting thematic elements thrown into the film. It's just, for me, I like my movies when they raise so many questions to at least take a side by the end on something or provide a twist. And sort of the big twist, minor spoilers here, sort of the big twist in It Comes at Night is that there isn't really as much of a twist as you would think. Like, it seems to be something you sort of suspect it might be that, and it sort of ends up being that. I mean, and I was kind of expecting it to, like, for the twist to make the whole film, to make me want to go back and re-watch the whole film from the beginning, to sort of see it from a different perspective and try and see hints for the twist coming. And I didn't find the twist in It Comes at Night, if you can call it a twist, or the ending, I guess. I didn't really find it super satisfying. I found it more matter of fact than anything, which I guess for a film that's as inherently straightforward as it comes at night, especially considering the marketing is not. I think there's a weird disconnect there, but of course it's unfair to judge the film based on the marketing campaign itself. But as a narrative, I feel like it was a little bit all over the place and lacked focus in areas, even if the execution as far as the concept and the performances and the look of the film, the score of the film, that was all top notch. It's just I wish that the story was a little tighter, not necessarily even more fast paced, just more satisfying in the end. And for me, it sort of left me walking out being like, well, that was a well made movie, but I don't really have any interest in ever revisiting it, unless maybe it is one of those films that you watch again and it grows on you, and then you sort of do come to appreciate the story on another level upon subsequent viewings. I just don't. For me, I don't really have the motivation to go back and visit it, other than to marvel at sort of some of the cool shots that Shults put together. And I will be checking out, listening to the score in the coming week now that I've seen the film and such. So those are just my quick thoughts on It Comes at Night. All things considered, even though I had issues with the film, I probably would still go 3.5. 3.5 sounds like a good rating for this, because it does offer a lot of strong elements, even if for me they didn't quite take it to the next level or reach the potential that the story could have. But that's just as everything with film and art in general, that's totally subjective. Some people might go into this and think it's the best movie of the year, and that's my perspective on that. So also, one other thing, we don't usually talk about news on here very much. Maybe we should start doing that, because we got a lot of updates on X-Men Dark Phoenix this week, and I'm, as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of the X-Men franchise. We had a whole episode I did on Logan recently, and I did a video review on Deadpool, so next X-Men Apocalypse. So I have a lot, well, not Deadpool, but X-Men Apocalypse, and I have a long history of love for the X-Men characters and the franchise, going all the way back to the 1990s cartoon. So here we found out this week that, first of all, that the cast of First Class and Days of Future Past and Apocalypse is returning. We kind of already knew that Alexandra Shipp and Sophie Turner and Ty Sheridan and some of them would be coming back as the younger versions of the original main cast, as Jean Grey and Storm and Cyclops and Nightcrawler, Cody Smith-McPhee coming back as Nightcrawler, I believe. But now we know that the returning cast of the main cast of the First Class trilogy, that being James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Nicholas Hoult, and even Jennifer Lawrence, who was quite vocal in the fact that she did not like wearing the Mystique makeup, and she seemed like she was transitioning out of these films because she was only signed for 3, so everyone sort of assumed that she was done. So I don't know if Fox offered her up a nice paycheck to come back because they want her star power to sort of boost the film, or she's got a much reduced role and she's going to basically amount to a cameo in this one. And if maybe they kill her off, because we don't know in the new timeline. I mean, the continuity for the X-Men films is already ridiculous, but in the new timeline, we don't 100% know what happened to Mystique in the post-apocalypse and post-apocalypse. That's funny. Like up to the modern, the 2000s and the current age, we don't know what happened to her, and the timeline has now diverged thanks to Days of Future Past. So really, they can do whatever the hell they want with Mystique. So I wonder if I suspect that Jennifer Lawrence will be back very briefly, with really James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender sort of carrying the weight, because since the beginning, the two main relationships of this franchise have been Charles and Wolverine, as you saw in Logan and Days of Future Past, and Charles and Eric, Magneto. So I think that they'll probably be carrying the weight of this, and Jennifer Lawrence will be appearing briefly. But I don't know how I feel about this, because I do think McAvoy and Fassbender are tremendous assets to the franchise, and I think that they've lent a lot of gravitas to those roles, really living up to Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen, which is kind of impressive considering the caliber of actor that Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen are, and what they bring to those roles. I thought that McAvoy and Fassbender did an excellent job sort of seamlessly slipping into that, and I'm excited to keep them around. Nicholas Hoult and Jennifer Lawrence I'm a little more mixed on, just because they haven't seemed particularly passionate about these projects, Lawrence specifically, and their characters are heavily with makeup and prosthetics and things like that. And I don't want a watered down version of Beast and Mystique. I don't want a Hank McCoy and a Raven Darkholme who show up basically looking like people for the whole movie, not in their true mutant form. That would piss me off. So if they're going to have them come back and just not put them in makeup and come up with some excuse for them not to be in makeup like they did with Beast in Days of Future Past or Mystique in Apocalypse, then I'd rather they just write them out and be like, oh, they're off on some mission somewhere or whatever. Don't necessarily have to kill them off screen like they did with Days of Future Past with all the other mutants other than Mystique and Beast, basically. But yeah, just have them be off somewhere. We don't need them in here if they're just going to bog it down. Plus, I worry that having too many characters here, they're gonna overwhelm the Dark Phoenix saga yet again, and we're not going to let Sophie Turner sort of rise to the forefront. That being said, I am also happy that Jessica Chastain is in talks to play the villain here, because Jessica Chastain is amazing in all things, and I think that she would bring this to another level in a lot of ways. And it's being reported that she's playing the Empress of the alien empire known as the Shi'ars. Now, not being 100% a comic book person, I'm not particularly well versed on all the details of the comics, because I am more of the film, TV, that kind of guy. So she will be playing Lilandra, the Empress of the Shi'ar Empire, as I mentioned, who leads the quest to imprison and execute the Dark Phoenix, sending her into conflicts with the X-Men. This is coming straight from the Hollywood Reporter's take on the news, and I'm game for that. I don't think we want to see Dark Phoenix necessarily as the main villain the whole time. I have a sense that Chastain would be sort of the main villain for like maybe the first 2 acts until Dark Phoenix really loses control. Sort of like The Last Stand, only not terrible, hopefully. But yeah, Jessica Chastain coming in here, I think she's an incredible actress, and I think she'd do a great job adding to the X-Men canon and being yet another celebrated actor coming into a comic book role. We're seeing that more and more these days, and this seems like a good opportunity for her to chew the scenery a little bit in a similar way to Cate Blanchett in Thor Ragnarok. So one of my only main concerns here with this film is that it's being directed by Simon Kinberg. Now, Simon Kinberg was actually a writer and producer on several of the past X-Men films, including X-Men: The Last Stand, including Days of Future Past and First Class and Apocalypse. Like, he's been working on this. He's been one of the key elements of this franchise for the last several years. Really since, since X-Men First Class, he's been on board as a producer on pretty much all these movies, including Deadpool, including Logan, things like that. But as a writer, he's actually written Apocalypse, Days of Future Past, Last Stand, and that's it as far as writing X-Men films. He's also done other movies like Mr. and Mrs. Smith and the Fantastic Four from 2015, but Sherlock Holmes from 2009. But there's not anything there to make me feel like he's capable of 100% pulling this off. This is also his directorial debut, which makes me a little nervous for such an important story. I sort of almost want, even though Bryan Singer clearly is getting X-Men fatigue with Apocalypse, I sort of wanted him to come back for this one, since he didn't get a chance to do his Phoenix story proper in Last Stand and jumped ship to do Superman Returns. I was hoping he would stick around and sort of see that through to the end after Apocalypse sort of hinted at the Dark Phoenix saga. But if anything, I feel like Kinberg at least has something to prove, because he was responsible in part for Last Stand, which botched his storyline so royally about 11 years ago. I feel like he feels more pressure to make it work this time. So whether or not it does, I mean, we have to wait and see, but hopefully hopefully somebody is making sure that this does not get jacked up. The fact that he wrote Days of Future Past and Apocalypse also kind of worries me, because I feel like those screenplays are a little overwhelmed with elements, and Apocalypse in particular has so much going on, and some of it works and some of it doesn't. It's a very, I mean, you can see my video review of Apocalypse in the show notes, as well as, my thoughts on Logan. But there's nothing in there to make me think that he can handle going even bigger than Apocalypse. Or not necessarily bigger, but the same level of effects, the same level of story complexity, because Apocalypse was, even though I enjoyed it, and of course I own it, because like I said, I love the X-Men franchise, it's definitely like fifth out of the six X-Men, X-Men team films. It's definitely towards the bottom end of those. So having the guy that wrote that one and Days of Future Past, which suffered some of the same overblown problems, but I think pulled them off in a better way thanks to the time travel conceit and the split narrative there. I'm a little concerned about how Dark Phoenix is going to turn out with Kinberg in charge. Maybe he'll prove us wrong. I hope so. He's I really liked his work on Days of Future Past. But as far as Apocalypse and The Last Stand, he basically wrote both of the weakest X-Men team films. And when I say team, I mean non-Wolverine, non-Deadpool, obviously. So I don't know. I would have preferred someone else maybe in charge of this, or at least directing it. So there would be, but the fact that there'd be like a little more diversity of opinions, as opposed to Simon Kinberg handling the whole thing as writer, producer, director, and blah blah blah. I'm sure Bryan Singer will be involved here as a producer, but yeah. So that worries me a little bit. I do like the fact that if we're gonna continue this time jump with each film in this current First Class franchise, whatever we're going to end up calling this, the prequel franchise or the other timeline, I do like that this is now going to be set in 1991, we've learned. I think that's interesting. It's around the same time that I was really big into X-Men. So hopefully they'll use the 1990s cartoon theme, because if they don't, that's a tremendous missed opportunity. Just weave it into the score. I don't know who they're getting to score this thing, but just weave that into the score a little bit and have like undertones of na 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 or something. I think that would be amazing. I don't think they'll do it, but I think it would be cool if they do. I wonder if there's a rights issue there or not. I'm not quite sure what the deal is with that. But we went from 60s to 70s to 80s to 90s. So that's sort of feels like they're painting themselves into a corner, even though I do like the time jumping thing. It sort of does feel like, well, the next one would be the 2000s, which puts us at the 2000 X-Men film from Bryan Singer. So I don't know if they're planning on continuing with this timeline and just sort of Star Trekking it and have like, well, that was we reset the timeline, so now we can go forward and like rewrite those other films, and maybe that seems like that is probably what they're intending on doing. I doubt that they're envisioning Dark Phoenix and being the last of this franchise, this prequel franchise. But yeah, so we'll see what happens with that. I was kind of hoping that Apocalypse would have marked the end of this trilogy and opened up the doors for the X-Men franchise to sort of move into something fresher and not be rehashing old storylines and using the same characters over and over and over again. Because I sort of feel like now we're going to get another 3 films with Cyclops and Jean and Storm and all over, that's like we already did, as opposed to focusing on things like the Deadpool sequel or X-Force or New Mutants. I mean, there's so much opportunity in the X universe, which is unlike the Spider-Man universe over at Sony, where they're trying to do Venom as his own non-MCU shared universe. There's so many stories they can tell using the characters from just X-Men that Fox can literally keep this going forever and not necessarily have to be repeating themselves over and over with, here's Wolverine again, here's Cyclops and Jean again, here's Magneto and Professor X again. It's like, you guys have other stuff going on. I was hoping that Deadpool would have been sort of the launch pad for a rebooted universe in a way, and to start fresh, either in a different timeline or a different, jump further ahead in the chronology, or just focus on other characters. Just, don't be like kind of beating this dead horse, so to speak. Because I don't even know who really wanted to see more from, who wanted to see a follow-up after Apocalypse, because I know that was very weakly received in general from critics and some audiences. It was very mixed, I believe. And the box office was okay, but it wasn't like Deadpool Logan numbers. So it's boggling my mind that they're still really pushing this, unless they are intending Dark Phoenix to be the end and have it be a 4-parter. Maybe that's what they're thinking. It's hard to tell with the X-Men films, because Fox does kind of seem like they're making it up as they go along. But after Logan and Deadpool, it does feel like they're finding a sort of creative renaissance, and not necessarily just because those films are R-rated. Just feels like they're taking risks and trying something different. But then, so it makes it that much more frustrating when they reset to sort of $200 million CGI fest of, the same kind of X-Men film you've been watching for 20 years. But maybe Dark Phoenix will dream a little bigger, like Logan and Deadpool, and try something different. I don't know. Well, I haven't seen anything really from Simon Kinberg to necessarily make me think that. But at least next year we have not only Dark Phoenix, but we also have Deadpool 2, and we have the New Mutants, as I mentioned. So it's an interesting time for the X-Men franchise. I feel like I think that Dark Phoenix will sort of be after Apocalypse, be the make or break point where we're either going to continue with these traditional team films like we've been doing with the First Class trilogy, or we're going to let this be the end of that. And take it in a new direction, and finally let that template of X-Men film go. I mean, it has been 20 years, and the DCEU is only 4 movies in, and they're already taking chances with certain things. And the MCU is definitely evolving constantly, so it would seem. So we'll see what's happening. I'd like to see, maybe Dark Phoenix will mark the end of an era that I thought Apocalypse should have, but we'll find out next year. And of course, we'll all stay tuned to see what news comes up next. So that'll take us, that'll end our, catch-up segment. There's no official name for this opening segment, but it's essentially me just catching up on films I may have seen that's not getting full review, and just news items and things like that. So that'll take us into our review of The Mummy.
You are alive because you were cursed.
Cursed? By what?
The ultimate evil. Welcome to a new world of gods and monsters.
You saw that, right?
Oh, I saw that, Tom, and part of me kind of wishes I didn't. But, we're getting ahead of ourselves. For those of you who are new to our review segments, we talk about the hype, the story, the cast, the production, and the verdict. However, for this one, we're going to be looking at not only The Mummy 2017, but we're going to be also comparing and referencing the 1999 version of The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser, Rachel Weisz, John Hannah, etc., etc., because both are attempts to remake the 1932 original starring Boris Karloff, and kind of kickstart a shared universe, because The Mummy was not trying to do that, the 1999 version. The Mummy 99 was actually just trying to make a standalone film that then became a franchise itself, but The Mummy 2017 is burdened with a whole bunch of other stuff. So let's back it up a second. First, let's go into the hype. Coming out in 2017, the 2017 version of The Mummy is Universal's launchpad, or it's intended to be Universal's launchpad into the Dark Universe. They even have a Dark Universe logo that comes out at the beginning of the film, sort of letting you know you're watching a Dark Universe production. And And this is intended to be a shared universe with all the classic Universal monsters. It's the Invisible Man, Dracula, Frankenstein's monster. We've even learned recently that we're going to get Phantom of the Opera and Hunchback in here somewhere, at some point down the line. But they've announced a cast: Johnny Depp, Invisible Man, Javier Bardem as Frankenstein's monster. They keep bringing a very high caliber of actor in here, and they're already announcing plans for, I believe, Bride of Frankenstein is the next big remake coming out, with Bill Condon, who did Beauty and the Beast most recently, directing that film. And Javier Bardem is one of the stars, obviously. So Universal's betting heavily on this, that this could be a sort of third pillar to their franchise library, now that they have all the Minions and Despicable Me stuff, and they have the Fast and Furious. They're really hoping that this can sort of... Well, and they have Jurassic World. It's like, come on, Universal, stop getting greedy for these billion-dollar franchises. So this is them sort of planting a stake in the ground and be like, we want a shared universe too. We're gonna make all these monsters come together, I guess, Monster Squad style, for you 80s babies out there who grew up with that film, at some point, and have them all team up, because monsters are going to fight probably a bigger threat down the line. So the Mummy 2017 not only has to fulfill the story that it's trying to tell of this mummy, what is her name? I forget her name. Amunet. Sorry, that's it. I just remembered it. Of her name, of Amunet coming back and sort of cursing the Tom Cruise character, and bringing him aboard as sort of her mate, so to speak. The film also has to plant the seeds for a much larger universe to come. That means we get Russell Crowe as Dr. Henry Jekyll / Mr. Hyde. That means we get all kinds of little Easter eggs and teases for, hey, all these other monsters and creatures exist out there. Some of them from a Black Lagoon. And the film is sort of tries to pull off both of those ends in equal measure, and we'll get to whether or not it's successful. So as far as the 99 version, that was just re-envisioning the classic Universal monster film from the 30s, but in a modern context. So there was big CGI sandstorms, and there was, the mummy wasn't wrapped in gauze. The mummy actually was like a decaying corpse. And it did a really good job of modernizing that and sort of making it seem like an exciting action, adventure, thrill ride type deal for the summer audience. This actually came out the beginning of May, if I remember correctly. And to me, it was one of the first films to really establish early May as the beginning of the blockbuster, summer movie season. And since then, of course, we have a Marvel movie every May. I think a couple years later, Sony put Spider-Man, the 2002 version, at like May 4th or May 2nd or something of that year. And then I think that officially cemented it. But The Mummy, for me, was one of the first ones to sort of make early May a go-to slot for studios to try and get their biggest tent poles sort of established in. And that it was selling a very Indiana Jones style vibe, even from the marketing. I mean, you had a period piece that they were focusing on and everything, and it seemed like an interesting way of taking this older property and bringing it into the modern age. So even though the film itself was not set in the modern age, but The Mummy 2017 is set in present day and tries to update it yet again. And we'll go into in a second which is more successful and why. So moving into the story. So the 2017 film stars Tom Cruise as Nick Morton, sort of a soldier / treasure seeker / con artist / whatever he is, ladies' man, I don't even know, I guess. And he comes across the tomb of Princess Amunet, played by Sofia Boutella, and essentially becomes cursed. She selects him. Spoilers. She selects him. I guess mild spoilers. Not really. This isn't the trailer. She selects him for something. I won't get into the details. And then she's sort of chasing him down, and he has to like outrun the mummy, but also find a way to liberate himself. Then you have Annabelle Wallis as Ginny Halsey, who's I don't know, a romantic interest slash person that he I don't know, someone that he deals with, who's from I believe she said she's from a law enforcement agency at some point early on. Of course, Tom Cruise, Nick Morton's interaction and quest with the mummy leads him to this organization called Prodigium. This is again in the marketing, led by Russell Crowe's Henry Jekyll. And the film is very meandering. It doesn't really nail down exactly, as you could tell from the beginning a few minutes ago. It doesn't really nail down exactly who this guy is, Nick Morton, why we should care. It doesn't invest us at all in the love story between him and Annabelle Wallis's character. I mean, this is mild spoilers because this is early on, but they've had like a one night stand, and for some reason they're like cosmically linked, like they're meant to be, I guess, which made no sense and I did not buy into in the slightest. You have the whole Prodigium element being a secret organization, which is very S.H.I.E.L.D.-esque and sort of out of nowhere. There's huge segments of the film that just focus specifically on that. There's a whole Mr. Hyde sequence in this film. I mean, that shouldn't be a spoiler. You know, if you're getting Henry Jekyll, that if you don't get Mr. Hyde, they're kind of wasting their time. But there's a lot of stuff in this film that really, it takes tremendous detours where you think that it's going to be a mummy story, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, but here's the backstory for the overarching dark universe mythology. You're going to need to know this for future films. And there's a lot of monologuing and exposition. And I mean, there's a whole thing with Jake Johnson's character that's very American Werewolf in London, and not in a good way, because American Werewolf in London is an amazing movie, and this is a tremendous mess and a big misfire, and I don't know whose creative decision it was to take that character in that direction, but that did not work for me at all. Basically, what I'm getting at is The Mummy 2017 is a fucking mess. It makes very little of it makes sense. It's tonally all over the place. Tom Cruise is cracking a joke one minute, and then we're supposed to be buying into his search for his humanity by the end. There's shades of him sort of doing a little bit of what he did of Edge of Tomorrow, where he's playing a reluctant action hero who's kind of a wuss and kind of a coward and kind of an asshole, basically. So I appreciate that Tom Cruise likes to keep putting himself out there and playing these, in a lot of ways, reprehensible characters. In between performances of Ethan Hunt, I think he likes to sort of poke fun at his leading man status at this point, and play kind of terrible people who become slightly less terrible by the end. But for me, I didn't care enough about this character to really see what happened to him, to have him free himself from this curse. I really didn't care about him or any of the characters in this film, really. There was nobody in this. There's nothing, no story elements in this film that really worked for me 100%. I mean, there's some cool CG and stuff, and we'll get into that with the production part of it. But story-wise, this was a kind of incomprehensible mess. And if this is any indication of what we're getting from the Dark Universe going forward, I am very worried. Whereas the 1999 Mummy, which is another film that, like I said, tried to remake the 1932 one. That one's really, I mean, I liked it already, but seeing the 2017 attempt to reboot the Mummy, or redo the Mummy storyline, that 99 one, man, that shines even more so now. In that one, we have Brendan Fraser as Rick O'Connell, sort of a soldier / treasure seeker who comes across who's basically recruited by a librarian and her brother to look for the lost city of Hamunaptra in ancient Egypt, and in doing so, she's really more of the I guess looking for proof of this ancient civilization, and he's just kind of in it for he's more of a mercenary, the Brendan Fraser character. He's really more of a Han Solo / Indiana Jones type. It's basically very Harrison Ford. It's really Brendan Fraser channeling his inner Harrison Ford, whereas Rachel Weisz, this was the first movie I saw her in before she became an Oscar winner. This film really nails sort of the old school, like pulpy 1930s action adventure style. It feels very throwback in a lot of ways, and director Stephen Sommers, I think, pulled off something partially by going in with a period piece. I think that helps kind of align it with Indiana Jones films, and also it sets it in the era that the original Mummy movie came out, which I think is sort of a novel idea. And it just has a very lighthearted tone that easily vacillates between the Mummy popping out and being all juicy, and Brendan Fraser deciding to scream back at the Mummy and then shoot him, and I mean, that memorable moment. There's a lot of memorable moments in this film. There's a lot of fun elements to it regarding the characterization of Rick O'Connell and Evie and Jonathan and Ardith Bay even, and I think even though there are elements of it that seem a little distracting, the film overall is a ton of fun to watch. I watched it recently, I think probably last year with Kai. She hadn't seen it before, and it just finds that perfect balance between being scary and being exciting, and sort of drawing you in. And it has a very breakneck pace. That thing moves. That movie really moves from scene to scene with like no problem. And it's funny because there's not often that you see a film that comes out and it's sort of it's an action adventure but with like swashbuckling elements, where it just feels like it feels like pure escapism. It feels like the kind of movie that's made to just go out, have a ton of fun, and go on a ride for 2 hours. I'm talking about The Mummy, 99. I'm talking about Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. I'm talking about The Mask of Zorro. You get one maybe every few years, and it helps when it's a period piece because it pulls you out of real life and makes you feel like you're entering another world. So I think The Mummy, 99 was wisely opting for that period piece angle. And maybe if the 2017 had done a similar route, it would have had an easier time sort of getting the story together. But The Mummy itself, the 99 one, not concerned with setting anything up. It just tells a very self-contained story focused on this very small group of individuals, and allows the characters to interact in ways that feel natural instead of forcing a love story where, I mean, there's still a love story in it, but the love story is actually believable, as opposed to the 2017 where they put so much emphasis on it that it's never really, you never buy it. They don't have, Cruise and Wallace don't really have chemistry. They don't really, I mean, I don't ever feel that he gives a crap about her, and I don't understand why she gives a crap about him, really, because his character is so inconsistent, and the humor in the film doesn't really work, and the drama, therefore, because you don't believe the characters emotionally, they're not emotionally grounded, that doesn't work. So it's a mess. So moving into the cast. Tom Cruise does what he can in 2017. He is Tom Cruise, but the problem is that he's sort of on cruise control, for lack of a better term, and yes, pun intended. That he's basically just playing the same kind of character he's played a million times, only it's not well fleshed out. He's not fully characterized. He's playing kind of an archetype / a cliche here. And as the main character, as the protagonist, the one we're supposed to be rooting for, it just doesn't work because you don't really give a shit about this guy. You don't really care what happens to him. You don't really you don't feel invested in his journey because you don't feel like you have a sense of who he is to begin with. So when his arc happens in the third act and he's sort of supposed to evolve as a character, you don't really care. You don't really feel the stakes. You don't. You're just, like I said, you're just not invested in him whatsoever. Russell Crowe is fine as Henry Jekyll. He's probably one of the better ones in this film. His Mr. Hyde did seem a little underwhelming. I think personally that you could have held back Mr. Hyde for future films. I mean, isn't it enough? You would think maybe it would be enough to have Dr. Henry Jekyll in here, but knowing that the kind of movie this is and that they were cramming so much in there, it wasn't surprising to me that Mr. Hyde did show up. I was just hoping that they would just have him be Henry Jekyll and let that sort of stand on its own until a future movie where then we'd be like, oh shit, that's right, he's Henry Jekyll. I forgot, we haven't seen his other side yet. But they blew their wad right out the gate, and we get it here, and it's not that exciting. I mean, I didn't like the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen CG Mr. Hyde either, because that was terrible. That was everything about that movie was terrible, except for Sean Connery, who's always great and everything. But I digress. I don't know. I wasn't feeling Mr. Hyde. There was a couple elements in that scene that were cool, but there was nothing about it that made me excited to. Ooh, we need to see more Jekyll and Hyde in another movie. It was not a smart move to let Mr. Hyde do his thing this early in the Dark Universe. Annabelle Wallis was again okay. Her character didn't make sense to me, sort of like Nick Morton, because like I said, I keep going back to this, but it's once you see the movie, if you haven't seen the film, it's been out a week, so if you haven't seen the film, maybe wait till Redbox or Netflix or something. But if you are still planning on seeing it, or you just recently saw it, you know that the love story is really pivotal in this movie, and I don't know why, because it was probably the least successful element of it was probably the least successful element of the film. I'll say that. And Annabelle Wallis therefore didn't really have very much interesting to do. She's sort of a strong character in the first act or so, and then becomes damsel in distress for Nick Morton to kind of chase after, and becomes just like a token for him to sort of work towards, because apparently he does have feelings for her. She didn't have much to work with, so it's not fair for me to judge Annabelle Wallis as an actress based on this performance. I don't think I've really seen her in that much other than this film. She's been in a very small role in X-Men First Class, and in films like Annabelle, which I haven't seen, and King Arthur Legend of the Sword, which I haven't seen because I value my time and I heard it wasn't that big a deal. So I can't really say what she is like as an actress, because she doesn't have very much to work with here. Jake Johnson is Chris Vale. I won't go into what happens with his character, but his character seemed entirely pointless. I think they should have just cut him out completely, or let him appear briefly and then move on to other things. But yeah, he was wasted here. I do think Jake Johnson is funny. I actually am one of the few that did like his role in Jurassic World as sort of the audience surrogate. I like Let's Be Cops. I think that's a fun movie. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but it's entertaining and hilarious. And I think Jake Johnson is a talented guy. But man, he does not fit into this movie, especially with, like I said, the tonal conflict that they have going on. His character is far more comedic, and none of that material really lands for me. The only one in this film that really I thought was strong was Sofia Boutella. And of course, I've seen, she was in Kingsman, and she was great in Kingsman, and she was in Star Trek Beyond, and she was great in that. Pretty much everything she's in, I think she's got a great physicality to her. She's got an amazingly unique look and style, and she was the only part of this movie that was worth the price of admission, if you ask me. I mean, I think her mummy, the way that they designed it wasn't really the best, but I think that she owned the role the way as much as she could, and she brought real menace to a character that isn't really as developed or realized as she should have been. I think Aminette is a strong character, And I think that Sofia Boutella did everything she could to make that character successful. And the fact that she shines in an otherwise pretty dismal film is, I think, a testament to her strength as an actress, to her strength as a physical presence. I mean, you see her in films like Kingsman and Star Trek Beyond, and now this film. You can tell that she has a lot of. You can tell that she's a classically trained dancer, which, I mean, that's very evident in just the way that she moves her body and the way she changes that based on the character, and the way she just flows. She just flows through. You can see that mummy sort of swagger in her when she's unleashing her minions or whatever. Not minions, like not those Universal minions. If those Universal minions had shown up, I might like this movie better, actually, because I'm a defender of the minions. I know I'm in the minority here, but I actually do like the minions. I know that's I'm kind of outing myself on that, but when she unleashes her henchmen, let's put it that way, her creatures, whatever, when she unleashes her reinforcements to take down Tom Cruise and the other people, I thought that that kind of thing, she was believable in the role, basically. She was the only one that was believable in this film, in the role. Maybe Russell Crowe a little, but other than that, it was either just bad material, I think, is what it was. If Tom Cruise can't save your movie, you need a new script. And the fact that this movie has like 6 writers credited: David Koepp, Christopher McQuarrie, Dylan Koosman, John Spates, Alex Kurtzman himself, and Jenny Lumet. I mean, that goes to show you that there are so many different visions going on here that they don't really know exactly what the hell they're doing, and you can tell the actors can only do so much to elevate this material if the writers don't seem to know exactly what story they want to tell. Going now to The Mummy '99, the cast there. Brendan Fraser is hella charming here as Rick O'Connell. As I said, he sort of does channel an Indiana Jones Han Solo vibe, but ain't nothing wrong with that, basically. I think he does a good job at it. I think he brings his own sort of sense of humor to that part, and makes Rick O'Connell a character you do want to follow, even though you would be following him into 2 very shitty sequels, in my opinion. I did not like The Mummy Returns or The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. I thought those were both pretty terrible. But I think that Rick O'Connell is established right out the gate as a character that you want to root for, that you hope to see succeed, that you understand where he's coming from, and his development throughout the course of the story you buy. More importantly, you buy his relationship and his connection to Evie, played by Rachel Weisz, Evelyn Carnahan here. She was a revelation for me when I saw this film. I already knew Brendan Fraser had been, George of the Jungle and things like that. But Rachel Weisz was new to me when I saw The Mummy '99. And I think she might deliver the best performance in the movie. I think that she is such a dynamic actress, and she brings such a innocence, but also like intelligence, but also like sort of naivete to the role, that makes her the perfect combination of strong woman, but also not audience surrogate, but you can sort of sense her feeling like she's in over her head, even though she is so strong and so smart and so charismatic. I think that Rachel Weisz brings a lot to this part. And it's weird to me that by the time they got to the 3rd movie, they were like, oh, we could put Maria Bello in there. She could do the same thing. Yeah, no, she can't do the same thing. I've seen all the Mummy movies, including The Scorpion King. There's only one Evie, and it's Rachel Weisz. And she did a tremendous job in this film. Really strong, supporting female character. Does not feel like a damsel in distress, even when she is one. She still feels like an equal with Rick O'Connell, as opposed to the 2017, where I don't really give a crap about Annabelle Wallis's character. I don't really give a crap about Tom Cruise. For your movie to not make me care about Tom Cruise when Jerry Maguire is like basically my favorite movie, you fucked up, basically. I mean, I don't know any other way to say it. If you have Tom Cruise in your movie and you basically turned me against Tom Cruise, where I'm totally disinterested in what's going on with his character, that's bad. That's a sign of how bad your film is. I'm just saying. So going back to the 99 one, John Hannah as Jonathan, the sort of drunken, devil may care brother of Evie. He was a lot of fun in this. He's basically the comic relief. If we're doing analogs to the 99 and the 2017 one, Brendan Fraser over Tom Cruise any day in these characters, in these roles. I know that's weird to say otherwise because Tom Cruise is a huge movie star and Brendan Fraser's star is decidedly faded over the years. Rachel Weisz is like leagues above Annabelle Wallace. That's ridiculous. And John Hannah is much stronger than Jake Johnson's performance in the new film. It's I think he provides that comic relief that you want from a film like this. He keeps the tone light and fun and reminds you that you're in a movie when things get dark. He kind of resets your sensibility a little bit. In fact, now talking about this, I really want to watch the 99 Mummy again. I might have to bust out the Blu-ray and watch that one of these days. The three of them as the ostensible leads are all really strong. Arnold Vosloo as Imhotep, another good performance. I think if we're going based on performance wise, I think Sofia Boutella commits to it more in the new film. But Arnold Vosloo has kind of presence without really having to do much. He kind of stands there and smiles creepily, and you're like, whoa, this guy's scary. But it also helps that a lot of his performance, I mean, The Mummy is largely CG for most of the film. It's not until like maybe the third act, I think, where he is fully formed, where he doesn't have like a partially decaying face or anything. And I think Arnold Vosloo did a great job bringing that character to life. Also, Oded Fehr as Ardith Bey, the defender of... Man, I don't forget the name of that group that he's with. But basically one of the men who is tasked with defending the mummy and keeping it safe and keeping him from gaining power. I think that he... the Magi, that's it. Here you go. Part of the Magi. He brings a lot of elements of fun and really he's like the true swashbuckler here. Not the true swashbuckler, but he's like the warrior. He's like the Obi-Wan, I guess, of this, and that he has a mission and he's focused on the mission, and that's the only thing that matters. So because of that, he's very dry, very focused, very much a strong foil for the Brendan Fraser character who he plays off of. And I think I liked Ardith Bey a lot. I was hoping we would have gotten possibly an Ardith Bey spinoff, especially after The Mummy Returns, where he has even more to do there. Unfortunately, we never did, and now that ship has sailed. But I thought that the character was a strong addition here. Also, even though he doesn't really have a analog to the new film, Kevin J. O'Connor as Benny was just so much fun. As the smarmy, opportunistic dude who basically shifts alliances to cover his own ass and ends up becoming essentially Imhotep's right hand for a lot of the film, as he tries to bring back Anck-su-namun, played by Patricia Velasquez. You notice I'm mentioning way more of the cast members in the 99 version, so that should go to show you that those characters connected with me way more than anybody in the 2017 film. And it has, even though it has clear protagonists with Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz and John Hannah, I think that the ensemble that they have surrounding them is also very strong, and I think it really elevates the film when you have such a high caliber of actor in every single role, nailing it and elevating the material to the next level. And I think that's probably part of why that 99 film from Stephen Sommers really works so well. This is not a director who I've really been tremendous fan of. I do not care for G.I. Joe. Used to talking about Indiana Jones. G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra does not work for me. I did not like Van Helsing. It's fucking awful. And or The Mummy Returns. I think the best movie he's made is probably Deep Rising was fun. That might be my favorite one of the ones of his that I've seen. But yeah, so he brings an interesting sort of flair to this film. So moving into the production. So as far as the production, CG wise, obviously 2017 has more technology at the disposal, but honestly, the visuals in the new film, they don't 100% work. There's certain points in the movie where it does look sort of fake. It does look like it's not up to the standard of CG that we have now. The 99 film, of course, some of that looks dated as well. But I feel like for the most part, it does hold up because we are looking mostly at like sandstorms or like, scarabs and locusts and shit like that. That's easier to pull off. If anything, I think the weak points in the 99 one might be with the actual mummy himself. He does look super CG and not as well executed as the 2017 mummy. But it's interesting to note that with the new one, they do mostly rely on. I mean, you see, it's just in CG. Well, I feel like it might be some more practical effects with some of the mummy stuff in the new one, as opposed to the 99 film where, as I mentioned, Imhotep is CG for most of it until towards the end. I think the score in the Mummy in the new film is fine. I don't think there's anything like super amazing about it that stands out to me. The older film, I like that. Basically, what I'm getting at is 99 film has stronger music, stronger visuals overall, stronger production design. There was nothing in the new film to really of note. There was nothing really of note. There was nothing really for me to mention, oh man, this element was really strong. Because it's not particularly well directed. It's not particularly well rendered, any of the visuals. There's nothing in it that makes me stand out. That made me come out and be like, well, the story was all over the place. But, at least this was really strong because there was nothing in there there's nothing, no elements of it that really 100% worked for me. It's fine to watch if you want to see it, but it's not something that overall it's a pretty disappointing entry in the dark universe, I guess, if that's what we're going to call this. So moving into the verdict, in case you haven't been able to tell by now, I didn't give a shit about the 2017 Mummy. It was pretty terrible, and I was very disappointed because I am a huge Tom Cruise fan. I like the Universal Monsters oeuvre. I like the classic films. I like the idea of kind of rebooting the Universal Monsters for a modern age to sort of let that, because let's be real, everybody's talking about, they're trying to force a shared universe out of this. Well, yes, they are now, but back in the day they had a shared universe of monsters. They had individual films for the Mummy, Dracula, Wolfman, and things like that, and then they crossed them over, and that was a thing that happened quite a bit back in the day. So it's not like Universal is creating a shared universe where there never was one. They're just trying to modernize it and basically bring it back to compete with today's shared universes with the superheroes and all of that stuff. And I think this is a very, 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 very poor attempt at making that happen. And it makes me worried about the future of this, because I do think this is a good idea to bring the monsters in and have them sort of cross over and such in a shared space, shared narrative space. But this was not a good way to start it. This film, if anything, makes me dread the next film in the Dark Universe, because I worry it's going to be even worse or just as bad as this one. And the whole prodigium thing felt really shoehorned in there. And they're using that as its connective tissue, which I think is lazy storytelling. They created characters that no one should really care about, and a storyline that brings nothing new or interesting to the table. And where it leaves the Nick Morton character, I mean, it's kind of interesting because I guess we're sort of wondering what's going to happen with him, but it's also maybe I think it's too little, too late. You don't really care about him by that point. So when the finale of the film comes along, you're just kind of rolling your eyes, being like, all right, I guess if this is what we're doing. So if you really want to see The Mummy with Tom Cruise, go see it. Form your own opinion. But my opinion, my take, Crooked Table's take, go back and go rewatch the 99 film, because that movie really does hold up largely. It's charming performances, really strong script, really fun adventure, and it's pretty much it's pretty appropriate for the whole family. I mean, you watch it with like your 10-year-old, and it's a fun romp to enjoy. I mean, you're not gonna break your brain trying to figure it out. It's not Memento or something. It's a fun popcorn film, but it knows what it is and it pulls it off. Which is more than I could say for the new film. The new film has no idea what the hell it's trying to do. It doesn't know if it's trying to tell a story about the mummy or if it's trying to set up a dark universe. It almost feels like they should have just had a Prodigium movie and just let that set up the dark universe first, and then we wouldn't need all this like 15 minutes to set up. This is what was going on. This is what we do. I'm like, I don't really care. So as far as verdicts, the new one, really just a big disappointment for me. I have to go 1.5 stars on that. And then for the 99 film, I have to go 4 stars out of 5, both out of 5. And yeah, what a letdown. Bad entry in the summer. And I was not particularly wowed by the trailers for this new movie, but you know, with Tom Cruise on board and the promise of a shared monster universe, I was hoping I was wrong, and I was hoping it would be a good movie and it would sort of subvert expectations. But yeah, it didn't really do that, so unfortunate. But that will do it for this review, and that's all we have for now. You can rate and review us on iTunes if you'd be so kind. We're also on Stitcher. You can follow me, Robert Yaniz Jr., on Twitter at Crooked Table. We're also on Facebook, Crooked Table, and other social medias. You can find more podcasts, reviews, videos, and other movie-related goodies at crookedtable.com. Next week, I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to talk about. This month is weird because there's a lot of films coming out that I'm not really particularly interested in. I'm talking mostly next week about Transformers: The Last Knight, which I will not be seeing because fuck that franchise. I saw the first one and it was and I saw the second one and it was terrible. And I haven't heard particularly good things about 3 and 4. So as someone who did not grow up with the Transformers franchise and did not watch the show and did not have the toys, I don't really have any reason to care about this. I can understand if you love that franchise because you grew up with it, watching the animated one and all that, the animated film, I mean. I could see you then being like, oh my god, Optimus Prime, and he's like all CG and stuff. But I don't care. I have no connection to those characters. So I will not be reviewing that. I'm thinking about maybe checking out The Big Sick, which if it's playing in my area, I know it's coming in limited release next week. If not, I'll come up with something. Maybe I'll do like a news rundown and see some news stuff to touch base on, sort of like I did today with X-Men Dark Phoenix. But we will be back next week with a new episode. Until then, I've been Rob. We'll catch you around the table next week. Roll credits. I promised there would be an encore segment, so here we are. I watched Logan Noir this week. That is, of course, the black and white version of James Mangold's Logan, which, as I mentioned before, is essentially my favorite movie of the year so far. And this film, I mean, there was murmurs about it, about James Mangold doing a black and white version of the film, I believe while it was still in theaters, and they actually did release Logan Noir in theaters for like a one-night-only special event type deal. And I think it's a wise move to try that and put it in black and white, just because the film does feel so classical, does feel like old-fashioned in a way, because it is very much a Western, and a lot of those films are in black and white. And it's very morally gray, and I think having the film literally be gray sort of reflects the complexity of the characters of the story that's being told. And it was an interesting way of experiencing a film that I already love, and seeing it in a new light. I did appreciate a lot of the elements of like the shadows and the way that the black and white sort of accentuates the sort of isolation that the characters feel, and the weight that they have of their pasts and what they've done, and the murky road that lies ahead, and all of those elements I feel like are heightened a little bit more in the black and white version. I probably still prefer the color one, just because I like vibrancy, and James Mangold's film has such strong production design that it does get a little, that does get kind of muted with the Logan Noir version, but it is an interesting way to appreciate the film on another level, appreciate the way it's shot, and appreciate the very specific dark and atmospheric tone that the film sets up, just in the way that the story is told, and the way that it resolves itself, and all of that. So I just wanted to give you guys a quick note as my encore, highly recommending Logan Noir. It's included in the Blu-ray set that I picked up, and I think pretty much all of them, but it's not advertised on the back as a special feature, I don't believe. I think it's more of a like limited time type deal, because the one I bought, I got mine at Target. It was in a separate like slipcover inside the kind of tucked inside the Blu-ray proper set. So it might be one of those things that is, if you buy the film now, that you get the Logan Noir included, but if you wait long enough and they reissue it or something, they might not have that as an option. It might be one of those limited edition things. So if you do like Logan, if you love the film like I did, and you're planning on owning it, maybe get it sooner rather than later, because I don't know if that element, the Logan Noir version, is going to be available long term, or if it's more of a like I said, more of a limited edition type of deal. So highly recommended, Logan Noir. I mean, I don't care, color, black and white, purple and green, whatever colors you put this in, Logan's is a tremendous film. And you can find my link to the podcast review where I talk about that in depth for about an hour, just Logan. You can find that link in the show notes below. That's pretty much all I have, so we'll catch you guys next week.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
CROOKED.